Hello, and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News Channel. Just a reminder, if you want to join me on my daily streams, the link is in the description as well as in the comments. If you want to check out all the great crypto news encapsulated into one video, I make one video each day at my Crypto Daily Updates channel. That's also in the description and in the comments. So subscribe to both those channels. Now let's actually talk about the topic. Will Bitcoin move to POS? And this is a tough question. On a technical basis, will they move to POS? I think on a technical basis, it's almost inevitable if they want to survive. And that's the real question. Do they actually want to survive more than like 8 or 9 years? Because there's financial incentive to stay on POW as far as possible. Now, POW was the pioneering technology. That's what got all the decentralized ledger stuff started. That's what got Bitcoin started. That's what Ethereum is on right now, although Ethereum is moving over. But I think Ethereum's governance is actually a little more centralized than Bitcoin. It seems like a combination of consensus, Vitalik Buterin, and kind of an overboard has actually determined Ethereum's direction, and they're going to POS whether the miners like it or not. Bitcoin is actually, the voting and governance is actually dependent on the miners, and that's where the problem is, and that's why they might actually not go over to POS, or it's going to be very, very hard. We know the halving has Bitcoin rewards, so Bitcoin price necessarily needs to be higher after the halving and the increasing hash rate for mining to be actually profitable. And I think in a couple of halvings, that's going to be completely unsustainable because you're going to need Bitcoin to be like hundreds of thousands of dollars after a couple of halvings to actually be sustainable. And I don't really think that is sustainable in my opinion. Like after this halving, you're going to have like $10,000, $12,000 be the bottom line. And if the market doesn't push that, then miners are going to start turning their mining machines off because they can't remain profitable unless they have like super, super cheap electricity, which may not be available. And with a global downturn, you might not be able to push up Bitcoin prices that high. So on a logical and technical basis, yes, it does need to follow Ethereum. And if Ethereum paves the way into proof of stake and they prove that you can actually do it, Bitcoin does actually need to follow. But unfortunately, the monetary incentive, because Bitcoin does have decentralized governance, and I mean, you can say that all the miners are in China and all the pools are in China. That's true, but that makes people like Bitmain have an outsized influence. Do you think Bitmain is going to actually allow Bitcoin to go proof of stake that makes all their mining equipment basic obsolete? That's the problem. I don't think big miners are going to allow it, and they're going to try to delay it as much as possible. And their delays might actually cause Bitcoin's downfall in the end, because if the price doesn't really match up and POW isn't really effective anymore, or POW isn't profitable anymore, but Bitmain is still resisting it because they don't want to get rid of all their income and all their like mining equipment to be worthless, then Bitcoin's stuck to where people don't want to mine it, but they can't actually move over to proof of stake because the big miners don't want to get rid of what's actually left. That's the big danger for Bitcoin. Like if they actually look at it from a logical perspective, Bitcoin has to move to proof of stake sooner or later to actually remain viable. But because there's profit motive and money incentive actually involved in this, that might actually not be what happens, because we all know that profit motive makes people look in the short-term future, which might be devastating for Bitcoin's long-term future. I personally wouldn't mind it if something overtook Bitcoin and became the index, something more sustainable, but that's kind of like Bitcoin's future. I think like from all practical perspective, they almost have to move off of proof of work sometime sooner or later. But because of the big money influences, that they might not. I really do hope Bitcoin actually moves to POS, because that could actually basically sustain it for the long-term future, and maybe like stabilize the future of crypto. And maybe actually it could actually do more transactions per second, which actually would make it more spendable and usable and buff up its use case. But the thing is, because of the miners actually control it, it might not, and that'll eventually lead to its demise. So that's kind of like my kind of prognosis for Bitcoin. It won't happen in the next few years. I don't think this halving is going to be the one, but maybe at one more halving or two more halvings from now, you're going to run into that problem, because eventually you're going to hit that wall, and you're not going to actually be able to like withdraw from that wall until you go down another path. And I don't know if the miners at that point will allow Bitcoin to go down another path. So that's my concern for Bitcoin, and that's the report for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, and hit that bell notifications button. Thank you, and have a nice day.